And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to quickly cap off the Woj Bombs segment, and then I'm going to go into the next segment because I think the next segment is going to be a rather long segment because I'm comparing Michael to Kobe. That is a long segment. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. And we left off with the Paul George move, so now we're going to go back to KD. Wow, surprise. Kevin Durant and another Woj bomb being involved in a trade. Wow, what a shocker. But breaking news, this is the Woj bomb for Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are nearing a blockbuster trade to acquire Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant, sources tell ESPN. Durant wanted to move to Suns, and new owner Matt Ishbia pushing to get deal done tonight. So obviously, this was a signal for a new era in Phoenix, an era with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker as the 1 and the 2 option for the Phoenix Suns, and people immediately expected championships. Obviously, with Kevin Durant on the roster and Kevin Durant being only successful with Golden State, that didn't happen. The first year they had Kevin Durant in the postseason, they lost in embarrassing fashion at home in Game 6 when they couldn't put the ball in the basket and Jokic was just destroying them. And then in this previous season, they got swept in the first round to Anthony Edwards and a relatively young Minnesota Timberwolves team. And this era with Kevin Durant hasn't really been as successful as the team expected. Now that they have Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, now that they have Bradley Beal on that huge contract, they're forced to run it back with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, which was a lineup that didn't work in the last postseason. So it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how it develops and how it moves and how it could ascend from what was previously given to us. So it's really tough to scale exactly just how good this trade is in terms of Phoenix. But for the Brooklyn side, they ended up acquiring Mikal Bridges, who they then traded to the Knicks for a bunch of picks as well, entering a full rebuild. So this is already a W for the Nets. Still the verdict is out for whether or not it's a W for Phoenix. But as of right now, it's an L trade. So, but let me know in the comments what you thought of this trade. Again, it really sort of insinuated the notion that Kevin Durant is made for super teams. And you can make the argument that Phoenix isn't really a super team, but they have 3 potential all-star players that all could isolate and could all create a shot for themselves. And again, you could argue that that's not what a super team is, but at the end of the day, you need all-star talent for Kevin Durant in order to operate. And this trade has sort of confirmed that notion to me. And it's sad that that's how this had to be, and this is how Kevin Durant is going to be remembered, but such is life. So next is the Portland Trail Blazers. Obviously, the biggest news and the only big news that ever came out of Portland was Portland Trail Blazers are trading guard Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks, sources tell ESPN. Now, it was rather surprising because a lot of people expected Damian Lillard to get traded to the Miami Heat during this offseason, which was last year's offseason, but that ended up not happening, and he ended up getting traded over to Milwaukee. Now, his first year in Milwaukee wasn't really a rousing success, but then again, when you're on a new team, I don't expect you to immediately bring results like Kevin Durant with Golden State, but that was rather cheating, but again, different conversation. And Damian Lillard, when he got traded to the Bucks, a lot of people thought that this meant that the Bucks were going to be an elite team. However, they ended up falling and succumbing to injuries. Now, this next season is going to determine whether or not Damian Lillard can still play like how he played on Portland, because he's actually going to work out in this offseason, which he didn't do in the offseason that he was getting involved in trade rumors. Makes total sense. And again, it's like, you have to see until how this will play out and the verdict. I think that the Giannis and Damian Lillard duo is going to be a rousing success. I have big hope in Giannis and I have big hope in Dame that they're going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference once again, because they should be in the conversation with the Boston Celtics, the Knicks, and the 76ers. Without a doubt, they should be in that conversation as being a top 4 elite team in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, with Doc Rivers as their coach, that's going to hinder them a lot. But aside from that, the next big Woj bomb it's actually from the Kings, and you guys probably heard of this if you tuned into the previous podcast. Pacers are trading Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and to the Sacramento Kings for Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Again, all of the typos are still there from the previous tweet. And this is, again, a win-win trade for both teams, like I mentioned previously. The Pacers got Tyrese Halliburton that fit well in their offensive system, and the Kings got Sabonis, who also fits well in the offensive system and is one of the more underrated power forwards that the league has. I'm not really going to cover this all that much because I already covered it in the last segment, so really don't need to do that. If you guys are interested in what I had to say for the last segment, go right ahead and tune in. And then this next tweet, again, is another reused tweet coming in from the Eastern Conference once again. This was when the Spurs have traded Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green to Toronto for DeMar DeRozan, Jacob Poeltl, forgive me if I botched that last name, and projected 2019 first-round pick, league sources tell ESPN. Trade call with league office is starting shortly. Again, this was a very, very big trade and a very good trade for the Toronto Raptors because it ultimately led them to winning a championship. And for DeMar, it left him sad and depressed. And if you guys want to hear exactly what I had to say about this trade, again, go ahead and tune into the previous podcast and the previous segment that I did. Not the previous segment, excuse me. The previous podcast if you guys are on the audio side. And for those of you guys on the video side, you can go ahead and look at that Eastern Conference video because I covered more or less the exact same thing. And we're going to go on to the last team before I go into another break and go into the Kobe versus Michael comparison that I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for. When this was, of course, around a dark time. Jazz star Donovan Mitchell has tested positive for the coronavirus, league sources tell ESPN. Jazz players privately say that Rudy Gobert had been careless in the locker room, touching other players and their belongings. Now a Jazz teammate has tested positive. And obviously, this tweet came in 2020 when the NBA was just before the NBA would shut down the season. And this news coming in, this is one of the biggest reasons why Rudy Gobert is disliked by so many people, because his carelessness and him thinking that he knew better ultimately ended up with the league shutting down. It was hilarious because Rudy Gobert, he wanted to make a point and he wanted to show that he was smarter and I don't know what it was. He was smarter than, I don't know what it was that he was trying to do, but he was touching all of the microphones in a press conference trying to prove that I don't know, maybe COVID wasn't all that big of a deal. The second he does that, he gets COVID-19. And that led to the NBA shutting down its season and cutting the season short. And a lot of people did not like Rudy Gobert for that. And Donovan Mitchell, of course, was one of those people that didn't like Rudy Gobert for his carelessness and ended up requesting a trade and ended up landing in Cleveland. Because, let's face it, why would you do something so ignorant? It makes no sense. But I digress. I'm not going to talk about it more in this segment because it's already in the past. And let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this news when it first broke out. Did you guys, were you for Rudy Gobert? Were you against Rudy Gobert once this news dropped? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But aside from that, we're going to go into the fifth segment, which I thought was going to be the fourth segment, and that is going to be a Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan comparison. I'm going to be comparing every single aspect to their game. I'm going to be looking at what an author had to say about their games as well, and giving my opinions about that in the fifth segment. So I'm really looking forward to this. Hope you guys are looking forward to it too. I'll be sure to tune in right after this short break. If you're interested in that, stay tuned.